mind to go to the police station to seek justice for the rich man. When he arrived at the police station, David told the police that he wanted to report a murder case, but as soon as he said that, he saw the man hiding in the bathroom, and he was wearing a police uniform. He was also a police sergeant. David was very nervous and didn't know how to explain. He quickly explained that his cat had been killed, but the sheriff obviously didn't believe this explanation. The sheriff had just killed the rich man, and the only blind man on the scene came to the police. This made him suspect that the blind man was faking it. In order to verify his suspicions, the sheriff immediately decided to drive him home himself. However, upon entering the door, the sheriff found the day's newspaper on the table. David had to say that it was for cat poop. The sheriff was obviously not convinced. He then tried all sorts of things on David in order to test whether the man in front of him was blind or not. The man took out a knife and threw it at David's head. Luckily, David overcame his inner fear and didn't show any signs of weakness. The sheriff thought he was overthinking it and left. Unbeknownst to him, he would pay a terrible price for his miscalculation in the future. Soon it was night. David came to the bar to play the piano as usual, but at the same time, Simi arrived. Apparently, Simi had heard something from the sheriff. She cautiously inquired about David. She was relieved to find out that David was blind, and David was secretly watching Simi. A woman who had killed her husband in the morning could come to the bar in the evening and drink as if nothing had happened. This made him feel even more terrible about Simi. Soon it was the next day. The rich man's body was found by the river. In an interview, Simi told the press that her husband had gone to a business deal yesterday with $10 million in cash, and today he was a corpse. The police suspected that it was a murder and robbery, and the police chief managed to frame a man for the crime, despite the man's explanation. In the end, he was forced to take the blame under the police's torture. Soon the police called the family to confirm, since David was also the last person to see the tycoon. The police called him to give a statement. Listening to the police read out the fabricated confession, he couldn't hold back any longer. But that's just his fantasy. If he told the truth, I'm afraid he'd end up like the tycoon. In the end, he was forced to sign a confession. He thought this would be the end of the matter, but things took a turn for the worse soon after. At the funeral for the tycoon, Simi told the story of what happened to him before he died, but there was someone else who witnessed the murder. After the funeral, the neighbor lady went to the police because she found out that Simi was lying. She remembered that a man had arrived at the tycoon's house before he came home. She took the elevator with him. When she saw the man enter the tycoon's house, she was puzzled. That's why she paid close attention to the tycoon's house. She realized that the man didn't come out when the tycoon went home. This is completely different from what Simi told her, although the old lady did not know the man, but she was sure she could recognize him if she saw him again. After hearing the old lady's story, the police turned to Simi. Simeon had to explain that the old woman was too old and might have mistaken the man who delivered pizzas last week as a suspect. So her story didn't have any credibility. The police didn't look into it, but the next day, the police and the sheriff talked about the old woman's words. The sheriff panicked. The police chief's wife even suggested that the tycoon was known as a good man in the area, so if he could get the old lady to paint a picture of the suspect, he might be able to solve the case. Then the police chief will get a promotion and a raise. The police officer even suggested to invite the old lady to the police station for a face-to-face interview, but these words sounded like urging to the chief of police. He had to explain that he would go to the old lady himself to investigate. On the other hand, Simi also knocked on the old lady's door when she found out about the incident, but unbeknownst to him, David had been invited by the rich man's daughter and was on his way to work as a private tutor. When the elevator opened, he saw Simi pushing the old lady down the stairs. He was so shocked that he almost fell down, and Simi saw what he was doing. David had to play it cool and pretend he didn't see anything. He went to the rich man's house and knocked on the door, but the rich man's daughter had already been called away by Simi.